Welcome back to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me live at MarketSite, we have Michael Zakowski. He's the founder and CEO of Logos Network. We are going to look at the future of money and whether it is digital or not, one of my favorite subjects on Trade Talks. Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having
me. At the MarketSite, your first time here. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, let's talk about that. Do you think the future of money is going to be digital?
So I definitely think the future of money is digital, and in many ways it already is digital, with many of our payments today occurring electronically. And I think as we move into the future, that trend's just going to continue, and in particular we're going to be increasingly moving to digital mobile payments. This has already happened in places like China, to a lesser extent in the West, but as more and more of our life moves onto our phones, so too will the payments.
What will this look like, though? Is physical money just going to disappear? Credit cards, cash, is it just going to go away?
So I think a big change that's occurring beneath the scene, not really impacting the experience of the end user, is the shift from a lot of these legacy systems with a lot of intermediaries that are very inefficient to more streamlined systems. And as that occurs, that coincides with a general push by governments and regulators in many parts of the world to phase out cash and other physical payments. And so increasing efficiency of digital payments where you don't have as much of a pain to end users, as well as encouragement by regulators, I think means that physical payments days are largely numbered.
I would think that the developing world is adopting it quicker because it doesn't have the legacy infrastructure, and so you're looking at different regulatory agencies and governments and so forth that are so intertwined into our more developed financial systems, if you will. But big news this morning, JP Morgan, they are looking to get into the digital asset space with a pretty big announcement.
Yeah, so really exciting out of them. We got to look into it and see what details fall out, but it looks like they're looking to settle a bunch of their wholesale B2B payments on a blockchain type product. And JP Morgan, obviously with Jamie Dimon, has been famously skeptical in the past of the technology, but I think these incumbents are increasingly realizing that they need to embrace this technology or be at risk of being left behind in the new payments paradigm.
Right, well, and you bring up a great point there that Jamie Dimon has been very outspoken about it, but this doesn't sound like a cryptocurrency to me. It sounds as if it's more the technology behind the blockchain, if I understand it correctly.
Yeah, as far as I know, that's what it seems to be. So they seem to be taking a bit of a baby step here.
Right.
A lot of the great potential can be in places like the developing world and in areas like B2C transactions where the system is particularly inefficient. They're taking a bit of a baby step here. And it's very interesting to see the dynamic play between blockchain versus cryptocurrencies. There's a lot to be said for an open public network like what we're working on in terms of how it can empower users around the world and cut costs out of the system.
How do you think developed nations like the US, for example, consumers that are already used to the kind of financial system that we have in place, do you think we'll have a hard time acclimating to it?
So I think where we're increasingly moving and where we shouldn't be moving is in the direction where a lot of the underlying technology is abstracted for the end user. Just right now, if I go to Duane Reade and I'm the average person, I probably don't really know how Visa or MasterCard is processing my transaction. It just happens to work. I think there will be some changes, though. The biggest will be a change from a pull-based system that we see today, where anyone who can scan your credit card or has your credit card numbers can pull a transaction on your account, to a push-based one that you would see in a WeChat or Alipay in China, but we're less familiar with here in the West, where you have to scan a QR code, for example, and then approve the transaction. So that's a bit of a shift, but it greatly increases the security of those transactions and benefits the end users. And I think beyond that, most of the changes are really going to occur beyond the scenes and be abstracted from the consumer.
So to help understand it a little bit better, if I transfer money from my PayPal to your PayPal, is that like the digital or what future money will look like, where it's seamless without any hard currency changing place?
Yeah, I think that's largely the type of experience that we look to see. Things like Alipay, WeChat Pay, Venmo, PayPal are precedents for where we're moving. I think one of the major changes that something like blockchain can provide is when you're transacting PayPal or WeChat Pay, you're in that ecosystem. You can't transact without with people outside that ecosystem. What blockchain can do and cryptocurrencies is completely open that up, remove trust from the system. Now anyone, anywhere around the world can safely and securely store and transact money with one another without having to trust anyone in the system.
I mean, it makes total sense to me. I don't think I've written out a check, and it's got to be at least 5 years. And look how convenient it is even to pay rent, or you and I to transact money with each other. But let's talk about Logos Network. Tell us more about the company and the solutions that you're looking to provide.
So Logos is a decentralized payment network that's designed for real-world use. And so what that means is our goal is to bridge the gap between the potential of blockchain and cryptocurrency in an area like payments and delivering an actual usable product that solves a real need for consumers while they don't have to worry about, well, how does this technology work for me? And what we've seen with Bitcoin and most of the other existing blockchain solutions out there is that they're not only slow, they're expensive, they're limited in capacity, but in many cases, there's a disconnect. No one really in the real world wants to transact in Bitcoin. They want to transact in US dollars or
Right.
currency.
Right.
So what we're doing is solving those key technological and practical issues at Logos, where you can get the performance and speed of a centralized network while delivering massive cost savings to the end user, all while transacting in US dollars.
Right, because there's always that issue of scalability. We hear that all the time when it comes to digital asset adoption. How are we going to break down that barrier?
So as you identified there, that's the key issue right now, and it's at the heart of what we do. The fundamental way we deal with scalability is by parallelizing transactions in the system. So an example, this is how it's actually done right now. If you and I both have the same bank, that bank doesn't wait for your transaction to finish being processed before it starts working on mine. It is done in parallel. But that's actually how blockchain right now processes transactions. Each batch occurs one after another, forming the chain of blocks. And that's the major bottleneck in the technology right now, causes all these issues. We're able to parallelize that in a few different ways. We have a non-blockchain data structure that allows one dimension of parallelism, and then a technology called sharding that can open up some more parallelism. And the end result, you need to be very careful with the math and what's behind these new features in the network. But we get much higher performance than Bitcoin and other networks with the same levels of security and perhaps even more.
All right, and to wrap up here, how many more years do you think until we're a digital society when it comes to our money?
I think it's going to be a gradual process here, but I think in the, certainly within the next decade, cash transactions are going to be very scarce. We've already seen a lot of.
Oh, well, I hope so. I
Yes.
never have cash on me.
It's a total pain. It's expensive for merchants to use, and the existing technology is coming down the pipeline to make it more cost effective and easier to use for the end user.
All right, that's good news. Thank you so much, Michael, for joining us at MarketSite, and thank you for joining me throughout the